Hi, my name is John Biddle.
My name is Sam Biddle.
And welcome to the podcast.
I hate this book.
Where I read my book, The Harvester.
To me.
And we're nearly there.
It's the penultimate chapter.
The penultimate chapter.
Yes.
Well, technically, no.
Oh,
Because there's an unwritten chapter, secret chapter that I haven't written. Which is chapter 40, which I'm going to probably write in the next couple of days or so.
You guys get these exclusive.
So it'll be...
It warms you up for the next book, doesn't it?
Kind of, yeah. I think the whole book is a staging post for Hypnos anyway. But for chapter 40 is for people that have read The Harvester. They're constantly, asking when is 40 out. So it will be out at the end of the podcast, at the end of the book. It will be released as a podcast, and then on the day it's released, it will be as a.
And anybody that's got The Harvester will be able to get it.
And it will be, you'll be able to click a link and then read it.
So what that chapter will do is set up you for Hypnos. But is it a conclusion?
It's kind of a conclusion.
Why haven't you in it?
It's a good question, and that is a good answer.
There is a good answer.
Both characters that are involved in it, Alex and this guy called Bromelo, who will feature quite heavily in the subsequent Alex Brown books. Those characters weren't developed enough for me to let them have kind of like that interaction, but I'm ready for it now. I think I can do it now. Yeah, I know them inside out now, the characters, so I can write, because I think it needs to be quite I think it needs to be a good chapter. It needs to be an intimate chapter, but not in a sexual way, but there needs to be a spark, because they become quite...
Who? Bromelo and Alex?
Alex, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Not in any romantic setting.
All right.
Okay?
All right.
There's no romantic angle on it, because he is profoundly homosexual.
Okay.
So there's nothing there.
All right. Interesting. So...
But the point of Bromelo is that he knows Broc.
Oh.
He knows him very well.
Yes. It was a bit of a cliffhanger, the last chapter.
What happened? I can't remember.
She shot herself.
Tracy Burgess.
Yeah.
Carmen.
And then they went to the barn.
Yeah.
They were like, there's a barn!
That's it, but the house engulfed in flames, but the barn didn't go up.
Yes. So, yeah. I was a bit pissed that it was a cliffhanger.
Well, that gets you to read the next chapter, though.
Well, I was thinking about that this morning. I was thinking, yeah, I can see why. There's a lot of testimonials and feedback that said, this is a 3 o'clock in the morning book where you can't put it down. And I've had a couple of books like that. Sadly, I'm not reading one right now. But I've had a couple of books like that.
You are?
I wouldn't choose this book. But... where you just you are there till 3 in the morning, like one more chapter, one more line. I'm sure I can actually read some more. I read a book. I told you to read it, didn't I? It was a book that neither one of us normally read at our genre, but I was reading it. I was really enjoying it. And I wanted you to read it because it was really well written. And the way Lindsay Hall, I think her name was. It's an urban fantasy book.
I put it on my list.
And it's really great. The way she writes, and she's quite funny, but it's urban fantasy. I mean,
We'll
it's not...
put the link up.
Yeah, it's not something I've read before. But I was telling you to read it, and I'm like, there's a box set, and there's a few in there which I always love. I got to the end of the second book, and I'm on Kindle Unlimited, so I'm like, yay, no problem. And I hit the button. April! The middle of April! It's not even out! Book 3!
I can go one better than that. I read Chloe Esposito's book, Bad. I've forgotten what the second book is. And then the third book, A Girl You Don't Want to Know. And so I read Bad and then the second book, and then at the end of the book, she said it was out in May. This was in 2017, and then she decided to go and have 2 children.
You feel
So the book's only just come out this year.
I think you feel a little
robbed.
You do, but now you know how your readers feel.
I've been
when you didn't edit your books.
Well, I've been messaging Chloe Esposito, and she replies saying, "I'm sorry, I've just had children. Blah blah blah. I'm on mat leave, technically." So
did you?
Yeah.
You're fine. I never do that.
Do you not?
No, you do that all the time. You'll message, I don't know, Stephen King, and he'll reply.
Well, I've tried. He's not replied, but yeah. I do
but it's
generally
amazing
find,
that you do that.
I do. Well, yeah,
I wouldn't even consider it because I think they were so far out of the stratosphere of my
I wrote
circle.
to Ken Follett. I emailed Ken Follett because I was so taken with his trilogies of the 100 Years, and he replied.
Did he?
Yeah,
You never told me that.
He said thanks very much.
Oh.
That's all he said, really. Thanks very much.
Well, that was his secretary.
But
then.
that's probably. I don't want to ruin that. See, that's why I didn't tell you. Yeah. That was quite nicely in my head, and that would have come up in conversation. And when I meet Ken Follett, when he's coming to congratulate me for my bestseller, and he'll remember that email. But I wouldn't have told you because you'd have said that's his secretary. That was his assistant.
So this is VA, not even an assistant.
It's probably an automated email as well. It's probably AI, deep machine learning. GP3.
It's like...
Yeah, that's the new thing, GP3.
Well, so I have been reading a lot. I'm reading now I don't know if it's called an urban fantasy book. I don't know what it's about, but she's got 43 books. I mean, they're all short. They're like 4-hour, 5-hour.
Novellas? Are they novelettes or novellas?
I don't know what that is, but it's short. It's 4 hours, well, 4 or 5 hours.
A novelette is up to 25,000 words.
I don't know how many words. I didn't look at that, but I just, I'm like 80% through the book, and I'm like, it's gone somewhere, and there are these little highs and lows, but there's no crescendo. Like this has a. It doesn't have that. It doesn't. It's just sort of. It's like these little hills, and I'm like, it's going to happen. Something bad's going to happen. It's got to happen soon. This bad thing's got to happen because I've got 80% through the book, and it's still not happened. And you're waiting for the bad thing to happen because all books have a bad thing.
Well, if you follow a trope, yes, they do. And
there's another series of books that I read that she's written hundreds, and she's got like a few different series. So you can see that there is this format that people follow, and that's really good. That for me is a quick read, and I know that they'll meet. They'll have a bad thing happen. They'll overcome it together. They'll have another bad thing happen that's slightly worse than the first thing. They'll overcome it. There'll be life-threatening whatever's on one part or the other. And then they will realise their undying love for each other, and then they'll live happily ever after. I mean, that's basically every single book she writes.
There's only been 7...
Page 24, bad thing.
There's only 8 stories in circulation.
So you have told me that before, and I do remember you saying that.
Mm-hmm.
But 8, not stories, but 8 structures, outlines,
plot lines. You can't reinvent the wheel because those.
But why can't you?
Because those 8 stories, reading is about emotion, isn't it? It's about intent and emotion. So a book has got to resonate on you at some level. You can't do that by just reinventing the wheel.
Why not?
Because over the centuries, those stories have been created. Romeo and Juliet is the ultimate love story. All these stories are centered around Shakespeare, and this is why Shakespeare was so popular at the time and still is because the setup of those stories was, he didn't just think those up sitting under a tree and watching the clouds go by. He cerebrally thought what would, because if he didn't, he would have been hung because being an actor was, at the time, that was almost considered sedition. And you would have been hung as a traitor because it goes against the religious views at the time.
Going back to the story plots, though, The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy would not necessarily be a traditional story plot.
Yes, it is. If you break down the story, it is. Every story is the same.
That probably has all 8 in it.
Yeah,
That was the most. I read that when I was a late teenager. I couldn't have understood it before then, and I was fascinated by it. But I mean,
I've never read it because it's never been my. We never, even the film I've not watched. It's just something that doesn't interest me.
No.
But as the stories go, if we actually sat and watched it, you would be able to pick out aspects of standard plot lines, and it's a circle. So you start with your, introduction, then you have your inciting incident, then you have your conflict, and then you have your resolution, and then you have your denouncement, whatever it is, which is your complete closure of the story. So when you close the book, the reader is satisfied. So the reader's expectations has gone, from an emotional point of view, it's gone up like that. And then you get conflict. So at the pinnacle of that is your conflict, and then you get resolution, and then you get that full circle of the story. So you have to satisfy the reader. If you don't satisfy the reader, you then irritate the reader.
Which is what's happening in this book. I mean, I'm reading book 1 of 43. I'm not sure I'll get to book 2.
For me, that would be, I would see that as a mounting decline.
Well, no, I think it's not the same. Whereas this book that I was recommending to you before,
they're short, though.
Yeah, this one I think is just specifically different people. I don't think it's the same person going through life. Well, I to be fair, I don't know. But the book I was telling you about before, the one I recommended to you, is one person, and it's like one big book cut up into two at the moment, which is also irritating because it leaves you on a massive cliffhanger and you have to buy the next book.
But that's the point, and that's why writers now write in that way, because our purchasing for books is completely changed. Because you remember when we used to go on a Friday afternoon, didn't we, and choose one book a week.
Yes.
And it didn't matter how shit that book was, because you'd spent nearly a tenner on it.
Yeah,
you read it.
We used to go. The kids hated it. Well, no, they used to be able to buy a book as well.
Mm-hmm.
But we used to go to the bookshop and buy a book
once a week, every Friday afternoon.
But I deliberated.
We'd spend hours in there choosing, because you were spending £20-30 on books. Which was a lot of money. But now our purchasing habits have completely changed, and that's because of Amazon. With KDP, you can have, when KDP first came out, it was unlimited how many books. They put the ceiling of 10 books in there. But when you're looking at books at 99p, people are like, I might not buy that.
I know. That is crazy. Considering Harvester is, what, 85p? 95p on the website?
I think it's £1.50 on the website.
£1.50. You couldn't even go to Costa's and get something for £1.50, and you get a week's worth of reading and to entertainment. You couldn't even get a film for £1.50. No. But people I deliberate.
I'm very judicious when I'm choosing a book. Very judicious.
And it's crazy, and I don't know why that is, because we would buy a 99p app.
Well, the thing is that I think because we come from a generation where buying a book was 10 quid, that we still emotionally.
Remember when books were £10?
Yeah, it was the supermarkets that started dropping the price, and then along came Amazon. I remember the first book I bought from Amazon in 1998. I remember the book.
What was that?
It was a 30-day self-development thing by Yolanda Vizant, her name was, and she's a good friend of Oprah Winfrey, and I saw her being interviewed.
That's right, yes.
And that was the first.
Yes, I remember.
And I went, and we drove to Waterstones, which was 30-mile drive for us on my day off, because that's how we bought books. And they didn't have the book, and it was going to take 2 weeks for them. It would be like a month before I could go back. And then I think it was you said, when we go home, go on the computer and go on this website called Amazon. and I went on it, and the next day it arrived. That was the first book I bought on Amazon. I remember it vividly.
I remember going into the into airport shop and scanning. This is when Amazon first did the scan, and I felt really bad. I literally was like this.
Did you scan the barcode in the book?
I did, and then I ordered it so that I didn't have to travel with the book. So when I got home from my work trip, it was here. I felt so bad. Sorry, W.H. Smith. So sorry.
But that's the nature of the beast, isn't it?
I know, but I didn't want to carry it all the way to America to bring it all the way back again because I wasn't going to be able to read it.
Yeah, it's funny.
But I wanted the book.
So which book, historically, has kept you awake at night because you had to finish it?
Oof. Okay, there were Flowers in the Attic. I don't know who that was by.
Find her name.
Flowers in the Attic, the series Flowers. It was so
disturbing.
disturbing.
The same person that did what's the vampires and werewolves?
No,
Myers.
Stephanie Myers. It wasn't her. No, because I read that when I was quite youngish. But there was a whole series of books, Flowers in the Attic, and I think it was just so disturbing. It ended up being a TV series as well, which I couldn't quite read. But I can't think what else I've read. I read so much. Virginia Andrews, Flowers in the Attic. I'd recommend that book. I would recommend it because it was. But I don't know. But I wouldn't be able to tell you. I've read so many books. I would literally probably read a book every other day. A new book every day, so I just consume them. And the one thing about Kindle Unlimited is that you don't tend to appreciate the authors anymore.
No,
because you are just reading for reading's sake.
Yeah,
you find a good author like this woman, Lindsay. I think her name's Lindsay Hall, but I don't know.
Well, the fact that you don't know her name.
No, but I do because I follow her because I need to know when the next book is out, and I even put it in my calendar because that was a good book. And I've never read urban fantasy before, so I will. Then I looked for other people, and I was like, but I want to finish this series. So that was frustrating. So I will then go now and look. I didn't realise it didn't show that she'd written other books, but I found that she'd co-written a book with somebody. So I'll go back and read that instead now. Wait for that. But what I'm saying is that I read so many. I can't think recently what book I would admit to staying up all night.
Mine, the last one that kept me awake all night was the Da Vinci Code.
Oh, yes.
And then I went straight into Angels. We were down at your dad's
Angels
in
and
Cornwall,
Demons,
and I read
yes.
that till it took me a day to read that. And then I read the next day. I read Angels and Demons.
I remember the book that I think I read it in a whole day. The Green Mile.
Same. I read it the following day.
Yeah, we this is when you used to go on holiday with books. We went all the way down to France, and I just didn't move. No. I just read that book, The Green Mile, and then you read it the next day. It was like 2 days, and the book was gone. It was amazing.
Yeah, it was fantastic.
And there's a couple of books. Oh, Town Like Alice as well. I love that book. I've read that about 3 times, and I never reread or re-watch anything. But A Town Like Alice, I read about 3 times.
Gay Gin for me by James Clavell. It's about 1,500 pages. But I've read that I think 4 times, and I won't read it again because I'll be stuck reading it. Because it takes so long to read it. Can't put it down.
Roots was good as well. I read that. Those are the books. Those are the books that stick with you. But they're not ones I've read recently. The ones I've read recently are very benign.
I've reread Roots, and that I was a bit disappointed actually, because I remember reading it as a teenager, and I captivated by the story because you can't quite believe that it's true. But the thing about Roots is that had scope for a massive spin-off because what was his name?
Begins with a K.
Kunta Kinte, his story ends so abruptly when the daughter's taken away. I would like to have known, because you're so invested in that character, and then 2/3, a third into the book, that he's gone, he's finished. And you hope at some point in the story they don't, and there's no.
Are you reading it though from an author's point of view?
Probably.
Because when I look at paintings from a painter's point of view, I don't appreciate the art like I would if I was, I wonder if we do look at things differently with our knowledge.
Maybe, but I understand from, because my sort of researching head on, after I read the book, I did some research, and, the story is true. It's more biographical than it is a fictional story. And, that's where the trail ends with Kunta Kinte in the end.
Oh, I see, okay.
And what was the name of the girl he married?
Oh, babe.
Bess or Beth or something.
I can't even remember my name half the time.
But I think it would have been better if that spun on and he created a fictional story of because I would be interested to know how his life panned out.
Why don't you write it?
No, I would never do it justice. Because of, that's culturally, it's...
You wouldn't know.
I wouldn't know.
No. And you've got enough to write, babe.
I've got enough to write, And, Alex Haley, the author, is, phenomenal author.
So how is your writing journey right now?
How do you mean?
Well, where are we at with the next book?
Well, yeah, it's going to be edited on the 12th of April. Nano will be edited on the 12th of April, so it will be out by end of May. It will be out by end of May. So
that's your 4th book in the series?
In the series, yeah. 4th in the... Yeah, so Troll, Harvester, Hypnos, then Nano, and then Origami will be following very, very soon after.
So you better start writing the 5th book, 6th book.
Yeah. Well, I've got to get this volume of true crime out of the way first, but that won't take long, and once that's done I can then crack on with either Majorac Farm, which is an Alex Brown book,
okay,
or something else that might be better. Not sure yet. And Majorac Farm is going to be disturbing and upsetting.
Hopefully it will be over the podcast thing by then.
Maybe I'll be rich and famous and I'll have someone actually act the podcast to an audience or something.
Oh, that means I'd have to go and see it. But then it would only be 2 hours of my life and not 6 months.
So we get to the book.
Let's do it. I'm excited though. I want to get to the end of the book because we left at a cliffhanger, and I want all the ends tied up.
Why not have all of them tied up?
Well, I know Broc's going to go. I know he's not going to get caught. I don't even imagine. You haven't even hinted to the fact that he might.
Okay.
You haven't throughout the whole book. You just assume he's not going to race back from France to England and knock on Alex's door and say, "You bitch!"
No.
And Alex is going to tackle him to the ground saying, "Sucker, you shouldn't have come back."
No.
No. I mean, that's so obvious.
Too obvious.
Yeah.
So it may happen.
Wait, no. Oh yes! Oh, that feels so good. Look how long it is. Look how long it is. Can you see it?
Yeah, I feel naked now.
Look at that. That is disgusting.
You've even got the pupae at the end.
That's why I did it slowly.
Yeah, you did it slowly so you could be satisfied by the pain that inflicts.
No, I did it slowly because then you get and then it will never come back now.
Got no fucking eyebrows.
We'll get Val to come in. We'll just put the little.
You're not microblading me.
I like your eyebrows. I've
If
got
I
no
get
eyebrows.
microblade, I've got to take a month off.
Why?
I'm not leaving the house for at least a month. Because it'll be literally just like, and I'm walking around and people will be going, especially at work, because all you'll see is that. That's all you see. I might as well carry a big sign with a finger pointing like that to my eyebrows.
You might think that you needed it because you had, what's it, alopecia or...
I work with type A predatory psychopaths, aka surgeons. You know, where a man is a man and a woman is a woman.
So you wearing concealer doesn't...
No, that's a problem. That would be a problem. If I turn... See, my friend Steve Pope, and I love him to bits, every time I walk into a patient's room, he goes, here's my assistant, John Biddle. He used to be a beauty therapist.
Does he?
Every time. Every time.
That's rude. Does he?
Yes.
How did they know?
Well, I've told him.
He's only jealous. So what do you do? Just laugh?
I go, it's true. And they look me up and down and think, really?
Oh dear.
Right, so we get to the book.
Yeah.
So we're so the house has gone up, the barn hasn't, they've clocked that. Carmen's killed herself, she's killed Renton. Okay, bodies are stacking up. Broc is aware, so they're going to go into the barn now, right? Chapter 38, here we go. The armed response team filed across the bridge, fanning out and skirted the barn, avoiding the house that was still blazing. When they breach, if clear, I'll let you go through, Alex, the team commander said. Alex was watching the men skirt around the wooden structure, guns at the ready. She was eager to get inside. Once inside, can you tell all your men to hold back? They just can't go through kicking everything in. The team commander looked down at Alex, partly insulted. Still looking at her, he pressed the presser on the radio. All call signs, this is 0. Once inside the barn, clear with caution, and then hold back, he said softly. Alex looked up, she smiled at the big guy. I know what you guys are like. His radio crackled into life with the acknowledgements from the other teams. With cautions mean they won't go in like a bull in a china shop. They might have to blow the main door, though, as it's locked, with reinforcements, or our initial assessment said. There was a commotion from the road. The fire engine was trying to get into the lane. Move your vehicles out of my way, shouted the fire chief. The team commander turned, unnerved, ignored him. Fire brigade think they trump everything. The fire chief was on foot storming up the bridge. Who's in charge here? He demanded. Alex nodded to the tactical commander. He smiled and turned. That would be me, chief. Move your men and vehicles, he demanded again. Can't do that, Treacle, he said. Why not? The chief read with his hands on his hips, wanting to fight. I have an active scene in progress. Until we have squared the barn away, you're going to have to let the house burn. The chief walked up the bridge and stared at the house. Anyone in the house? He asked, the noise of the fire making the chief shout. One fatality, suicide. Other than that, can't be sure at this point. The chief sniffed. Yeah, oxidizers. This'll burn for hours. Can you guys start soaking the barn to protect my officers? The tactical commander said. The fire chief turned, nodded, and walked off to the truck, shouting his orders. His fire officer was scurrying around, opening doors and dragging ladders off the truck. Breaching, breaching, breaching came the call on the radio, and then the report of the low percussion charge blowing the barn door off, followed by shouting of officers clearing the nooks and crannies in the barn. There was a muffled voice speaking to the team commander. Roger that. On our way out. Let's go, Alex. The barn is clear. Alex filed in behind the team commander, flanked by 2 other armed officers. He got to the barn. The heat from the house was fierce and searing. Water was cascading from the ceilings as the fire brigade had started to douse in the wooden barn. Alex entered the barn. So clean, she said. Sorry, Alex, the commander said. It's a barn. Locked up and it's so clean. The commander was stood in the middle looking around. What's this for? He asked. Alex asked, standing at the metal pole sticking out of the ground, nearly head height, with a digital combination keypad on. Remember where he reversed up his van. She pulled out her phone, dialed Ricky. Yo, he said. I'm in the barn with a tack team. There's a combination lock on a standalone pole in the middle of the barn, which seems a bit odd. Ricky thought for a moment. Tried date of birth. Hold on. Alex could hear Ricky assault the keys on his keyboard. Renton has all the details on his phone, I think. Ricky said. Suddenly it hit Alex like a sledgehammer in the face. Renton, she thought. He's dead, she said, voice cracking with emotion of the day. The typing on the other end stopped. Come again, Alex.
Forgot he died.
He's dead. Carmen shot him in the head. What the fuck, Ricky said. There was a long pause. You okay? Where were you there? Yeah, she came out into the room just as we were. She came into the room we were in and just pulled a gun and shot him. I think she was supposed to shoot me. How do you mean? Ricky said. She was on the phone to Broc at the time. He was telling her to shoot me. She just stuck the pistol in her mouth and blew her own brains out. Whoa, Alex. Enough, Ricky. We have to get Lucy. She's here. I can feel it. We mourn Renton when the day is done. Okay, try Saunders' date of birth, DOB. He said, his voice failing miserably to hide his emotion. She punched it in, and the red light flashed. Nope. Try Broc's DOB. Alex punched it in, and the green light flashed.
That was easy.
Well, he's a narcissist, isn't he? He's going to use his own date of birth, isn't he? Alex punched it in, the green light flashed, and there was a creak and a rumbling underfoot. That's done something, Alex said, looking around the barn. The team commander almost fell as the concrete apron he was standing on started to sink, creating a ramp. Bloody hell, he screamed. What's happening? Ricky said. Hold on. Alex hung the phone up, dialed into the video calling. Ricky's fresh face came up and Alex smiled when she saw his familiar friendly face. She hit the camera flip button on the screen. She turned and walked up to the ramp. Bloody hell, what's happening to the floor? Ricky asked. Alex walked down the ramp and the double doors opened. The keypad on the opposing wall was flashing green. Inside was not just spotlessly clean. The familiar smell of detergent and air filtration filling Alex's senses. Taking her back to her nursing days, the team commander entered after her. This is a bit different, he said. This is the Twilight Zone, Alex said. You wouldn't expect to see this under a barn. Indeed, Alex said. Alex instinctively turned left and walked the short passageway to another set of double doors. The air was loud and cold, typical air filtration of an operating complex. The team commander was grabbing her shoulder. Let us enter first, Alex. No, Alex said. We've got this far. The chance of anyone being alive is remote. She pushed the doors open and entered an operating room. Anesthetic machine, operating table, the white tiled floor, the walls bathed in a cool blue subdued light. What are you saying?
Or just that I know what's going to be there.
The unmistakable sound of a ventilator pushing air in and out of a patient. The back of an operating table at 75 degrees. Alex walked quickened. The sound of the ventilator meant that Lucy was still alive. She skipped to a half run, followed by the team commander. She circled the table and stopped suddenly, hand to her mouth. Alex recoiled in the barbarity of what she saw. Lucy was serene, asleep from the neck down, thorax to her abdomen was stripped of everything. She resembled the carcass of a Belfast sink, a rectangular hole of nothingness, just blood that had clotted in the recesses of the abdomen. Alex looked at the screen. Blood pressure was low, but okay. The pulse was determined by the ECMO, which was whirring at the foot of the operating table. Lucy's oxygen saturation was around 95%. Again, normal.
So when Lucy was taken to this point, I mean, for us it's been 6 months. How long has it been?
It's been a week. It's been about 4.
So can she be like that? All the her insides are out to the open?
Well, I've spoken to a cardiothoracic surgeon, and they said that they can be on ECMO for indefinite. The problem with ECMO is that you have infection and nutrition. Is the problem, because obviously you still need to, your metabolism still needs energy and stuff. So that's the problem. So I think the longest person someone's been on ECMO has been 7 or 8 weeks.
But she has no.
Yeah.
So she will have infection.
Yeah. So I spoke to a cardiothoracic surgeon about this whilst he was harvesting a patient, and he said that determinant, but over his shoulder was the perfusionist who was sat on this, and he was going. said it wouldn't happen. He said if you took all the organs out, there would be a problem with the physiological parameters of the body. So, from a fictional point of view, this works. From a practical point of view,
She'd be dead.
she'd probably be dead.
Well, she is dead, really. I mean, she's not going to come back from this, is she? What are they going to do? You can't put false lungs and things in.
But she could be harvested. She could have harvested organs, potentially. She'll never recover from it. No, you're absolutely right. But anyway, Alex got a grip of her emotions. What the? Alex heard the team commander came into her peripheral vision. Get the paramedics. I need an anaesthetist here too. Not just a pair of bread and butter stretcher bearers. Get the chopper here pronto, Alex said. The team commander was frozen and incapable of movement. Move! Alex shouted. The man shook himself out of a trance and spun and sprinted to the door, shouting in his radio. With the noise, Lucy stirred, her head lolling slowly left and right. Lucy, Alex said. Lucy, she opened her eyes. Dry and crusty. Alex grabbed a swab from the trolley and soaked it in water. She wiped her eyes. Lucy was groggy and unable to speak. Alex looked underneath and saw the epidural pump in her neck and the white milky substance dripping into her system via her hand. She reached and slowed the pump down to lower the dose. Alex mind searching the very bottom of her databank from her previous life as an ADP. Where is Broc? Lucy asked, her voice hoarse and struggling. Alex came back up and caressed her face. He's not here, Lucy, she said tenderly. You're safe now. You're in a bit of a pickle, Alex said. Her eyes darted down and then back to Alex. You must be a detective. She tried to smile. What is your name? You have lovely eyes, Lucy asked. Thank you, Lucy. My name is Alex, and we've been working very hard to find you, and I'm glad we have. Thank you, Alex. It's been a bit of a weird time. Lucy began to cry. What?
Do you think she would be so...
Who?
Lucy. It's been a bit of a weird time. I mean, unless she was properly English.
I think she's got a good sense of humour.
I mean, I can imagine if she was, you know, old school English, but she's from Essex.
She's not from Essex. They'd
be like...
Yeah, no, I don't. Yeah, she's got a good sense. She's a midwife. She's hard.
Okay.
Lucy began to cry. Alex couldn't stop herself either. The tears came down, relief for finding her, but knowing there was nothing that she could do to save her. Her time on this earth was going to be cut so brutally short. I wish I'd found you sooner, lovely, Alex cried. I'm glad you found me. I know that what Broc has done to me. You do? Alex said. Yes, he made me watch him. I have gone past being upset. I know I'm going to die, she sniffed. Felt disconnected. He made you watch him? Alex asked. She gripped the sides of the table, her knuckles cracking with anger. Yes, my throat is so dry, Alex. Alex looked around. She knew she couldn't give her anything to Lucy. We need to wait for the doctors to come, Lucy. I know he has me connected to this machine that is doing everything that my bits were supposed to do. She indicated the device to her feet. It's a bit big considering what he took out of me, don't you think? A smile curled Lucy's lips. It's a miraculous machine, Lucy. Voices were approaching. In here, came the voice. A couple of paramedics and a woman in an orange flight suit came in, changing the energy in the room. Dr. Liz Cranshaw, a gas man from Southampton, with a craze of long blonde hair and an orange flying suit. Sergeant Alex Brown. Call me Liz, Alex. She came round, almost knocking Alex off her feet. Alex stepped back. She kept stepping back until the wall hit her. The coolness of the wall, so welcome. She slumped, her buttocks bouncing off the back of her heels. Her head sank as she placed both hands in the back of her head, cocooning herself in her limbs, hiding it from the reality of the week just past. A voice was calling her back from the light she was in. She was bathing her emotions in. Yo, Alex! She looked up, eyes red and tired. She blinked to focus. Liz was stood in front of her. Alex stood and Liz helped to her feet. Something you don't see every day, Liz said. Alex nodded. She's victim number 27. Shitty death, Liz said. What's the story? Alex regaled her with a summary of what had happened, and Liz was shocked and upset by the information she just heard, trying to fathom any sense from it. Surgeon from London, Liz said. There's an unwritten law about surgeons, Liz said. All surgeons are cunts, Alex trying to find a smile. Liz laughed. You know it. Theatre nurse and anaesthetic ODP before I saw the light and got out. You saw the light and got out, Liz asked, looking around. More like jumping out the frying pan and into the fire. Alex nodded to Lucy. What's your plan? I don't know. I can't take the ECMO with me, it's too large. I've been on the phone to St Mary's in London and they have a portable ECMO. But even if we manage to get her into the cardiothoracic theatre in Southampton, what do we do? She's got no organs. How long can she stay on ECMO for? Alex asked. In theory, indefinitely, although we run a significant risk of infection at the access points, she motioned with her thumb. It's never been done before. What did this guy do with the other 26 victims? Alex motioned to the meat mincer. They went through that. Sick fuck, without exception. All surgeons really are cunts, Liz said. Can I do anything for you, Alex? You look like you've been through the mill yourself. No, thank you. Liz, although I don't have a friend to take home, he was killed earlier in the night. Liz pulled a face. Oh, you poor thing. She rubbed her arm. Alex nodded and went to Lucy. Lucy looked up and smiled. Gosh, never had so much attention. Alex laughed. I met your man, Harvey. Lucy's eyes widened with a large grin. He's a keeper, Alex said. Isn't he? Lucy said, agreeing. That's what I thought. He's ruffled some feathers for you, Alex said. Alex turned to Liz, who was now tending to the syringe drivers. How long till you move? Liz stopped. She looked at her phone. We're going to be at least 3 or 4 hours here before we think about moving. I have some senior guys coming from Southampton for better advice. Can I make a call and get Lucy's boyfriend down here? Liz shrugged. I don't think that's a bad idea. I would agree to that given the circumstances. Alex nodded. Lucy, I have to go. I'm going to make a call and see if Harvey can come down. Lucy sniveled and nodded her head. She mouthed the words thank you with tears coming from the corners of her eyes. Alex stepped away while the medical teams worked on her. She found Cuthbert's number. Alex, he said, picking up immediately. Can you get Harvey to my location ASAP? She pinged a location to his phone. Sure, hold on, he paused and looked at the message. It will take us around 3 hours to blue light. Will you be there? Negus, Cuthie. One of my guys was slotted on the job tonight. Need to take him home. Not Ricky? No, Renton. You met him yesterday. Took a round in the head, she said. Shit must have got real for you guys tonight then, Cuffy said. Pretty much. Listen, Cuffy, I need you to fill in about Lucy. She's alive of sorts. Alex explained the situation, Cuffy not quite understanding nor believing half of it. What do I tell him? He asked. Alex blew out. After the last week and all of the tribulations along with it, Alex, usually so decisive and driven, knowing exactly what she wanted in life, was for once stuck for words. I don't know, Cuffy, just tell him that she's alive but expect the worst, I guess. Okay, take care of yourself. Oh, Alex, I'll be in touch as soon as we touch down in Dorset. Thanks, Cuffy. The line went dead. She scrolled and found Ricky. We've got her, she said. Alive? Ricky asked. She recounted the story for the second time, and Ricky had the same reaction as Cuffy. I've sent James down to pick Renton up, Ricky said. Will you wait for him? I think I'll make my way home back. I think I'll make my way back. I'll go straight home, Rick. No dramas, boss.
So she won't stay and wait for her. Why not?
Like it's going to be. She's knackered. She needs to go home. She's tired. I would go home.
What about Lucy?
What can she do?
I don't know. But Lucy, she's literally just going to say goodbye to Lucy.
Not quite.
Oh, okay. That's okay then.
I think I'll make my way back. I'll go straight home, Rick. No dramas, boss. I'll stay at work until you make it back home safe. Call me when you need me. Thanks, Ricky. I don't know what I would have done without you on the team, Alex said. Get yourself home, boss. Otherwise, you'll make me cry. Later, stud, she said. Alex went to pocket her phone, but then she thought of Simon. She scrolled again and found his number. Always sleeping with it under it. His pillow when Alex was on the job. He rang 6 times and then Si answered a little fumbling first. Babes, I'm here. Being such a late hour, Si knew that Alex needed him. Alex sank to her knees again and she started sobbing. Babe, speak to me, Simon said tenderly. I can't, she sobbed, eyes streaming and unable to find any words other than the noise. Baby, come home. He knew she had finished whatever she had to do. She nodded. I'm on my way. I'm going to take a while though. I'm in fucking Dorset, she said, voice cracking, her emotion trying to get the better of her. I'll be here waiting. Warm, hot chocolate, cheese toasty and a warm bed. Alex laughed through her tears. He totally knew her.
So did she have to I'm just reading the beginning of the oh, I see, it's a big oh, so it doesn't end. Oh, she'd have to drive all on her own.
Yeah, I think I would. That's what I would do. I'd listen to Iron Maiden really loud.
I wouldn't listen to anything. When I need to process, I've driven home with nothing, and I realise like 3 hours later that I've not listened to a thing. I've done that here when I'm doing art. Sometimes I'm like, oh, I'm gonna listen to a book. I'm gonna listen to music. I've got it all set up, and then 4 hours later, and there's not been silence. I'm just so upset. Obsessed. Well, it's not obsessed, is it? It's when you're engrossed.
Engrossed.
Oh, that was sad. So does Lucy die then? Obviously, that's the last chapter. Well, you've got a lot to fit in that last chapter. Do you have an epilogue? Oh, okay. That's fine then.
Yeah.
So there's actually technically a fourth. There is a fourth.
Actually, no, I don't actually, because I was told never to have an epilogue, so I put the epilogue into the end of chapter 39.
Why? I like epilogues.
I like prologues and epilogues, but apparently that's not the done thing. And do you know what?
I love an epilogue.
Do you know what? I'm done with listening to people.
Don't listen to people.
Done with it.
You've beat your own drum, babe.
So I will have prologues and epilogues from going forward.
Definitely. I love an epilogue.
I made that conscious decision.
I love an epilogue. And the reason why I love an epilogue, because it just gives
Closure.
Well, it's a bonus. Like, you get to the end of the book and you're like, and then you turn the page and there's an epilogue. And you're like, I get a little bit more. It's like that last curtain call. Why did they say not to do an epilogue?
I think because some of these people are dickheads.
No, seriously, why?
Seriously.
What was the reason?
There was no rational reason.
Well, then you don't listen. If somebody doesn't have a good reason for something, you never listen to them.
They said that it annoys the reader. I said your comments have annoyed me.
Why does it annoy the reader?
I don't know, because I like epilogues and prologues. I think prologue sets the story up.
Yeah.
It sets up the plot
it
line.
too. Yeah.
It's a bit like reading the back blurb, but a bit more in depth, and you know exactly where this book is going, what trajectory or velocity this book is going to head to.
It's a trailer.
Yeah, exactly right.
Sometimes I've read 2 chapters and had to go back to the back blurb just to see what I was actually reading and where it was going. So the prologue would have set me up.
And then the epilogue gives proper closure to the story and potential opens the door to the next book. Yeah,
I mean, and sometimes I love an epilogue which is like 10 years later or 6 years later, or there was one book I read and she was obviously coming to the end of the series because it was a 7 years later. Okay. And then she started a new series for another family. And she got to the end of this series and it was like a 7 years later and it was a Christmas gathering. And, this one couple, the whole series was about lots of different couples. So this one couple with his 3 children, and then another couple was meeting, and it was just really nice to see them together, and they have babies, all of these things in the epilogue. And it was lovely.
Yeah, I think it's good.
Yeah, why? An epilogue is the best thing ever.
Yeah.
So your chapter 40, is that going to be an epilogue?
No. No, not really. It wouldn't have never have been an epilogue.
Who thinks of these names? Epilogue, prologue. Epilogue.
Well, it's probably Latin. Let's have a look.
Epilogue.
Okay, so it's a speech or piece of text added to the end of a play or book, often giving a short statement about what happens to the characters after the play or book finishes. So its origin is, where's the origin?
Just type in the thing, epilogue origin. Term origin. Epilogue term origin. The term epilogue derives from the Greek epilogos, which translates to the conclusion.
Okay, there you go.
So it's Greek for conclusion. How to pronounce epilogue? Well, to better understand the epilogue meaning, let's break it down to the structure of the story ending. For the sake of time, we're only going to focus on the third act of the.
So it means conclusion.
In Greek.
In Greek.
Epilogos.
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 Sounds almost Spanish. Epilogos.
But they're neighbouring countries. Ish.
What the fuck? They're not.
No, they're
Sam, we're closer.
Mediterranean.
Sam, Madrid is closer to New York than it is to Athens.
They're in the Mediterranean.
The Mediterranean's a fucking big sea. When you mean by neighbours, they're in the EU, which they're not anymore, because Greek has not been in the EU for years.
Well done to them.
Why?
No, I don't know.
It ruined their economy.
It did ruin their economy, didn't it? I realised that when I said that.
I think their income tax was 75%. Anyway, that's the chapter done. So have you all signed up for the Criminal Club?
I have.
Hey, watch this! Do 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 do.
Why are you shaking your head?
Well, I have. I listened to the Criminal Club. I have, but I haven't. I get it for free. I married the author.
It's only £2.
£2, or you can get 12 months access for £20. So you not only get a short story, you get the research, you get a video with this wonderful face.
And it is currently John Wayne Gacy till the 1st of April. And then it will be Dean Cole, the Candyman.
Yeah. So if you have yet to buy Harvester, sign up to the mailing list because you can get the first 5 chapters for free.
Free. And then there'll be a link at the end of those 5 chapters, and it'll take you to the ebook, direct sales.
So that's it.
Have a good week.
Yeah, have a really good week. And yeah, we'll see you for the last chapter of The Harvester. Do you know what? This journey started at the beginning of lockdown.
No, there won't be.
There won't
chapter 40.
If you write it.
I think it will.
Well, technically it's the official final next week, but there may be another, which is not an epilogue. It is a bonus chapter.
But we'll be going straight into Hypnos.
But Hypnos isn't as bad.
No.
I might like that because it's technical. Technology.
It's a techno thriller.
I like tech. See, I'm all over that.
It's a techno thriller.
Yeah, as long as there's no blood and guts, I'm all over there.
There's a bit of that.
So, well, if you yeah, that's it.
Steve, our friend, Steve and Wendy, said it's the best book he's ever read.
No.
Yep.
Really? No, I'm excited. We'll go straight into that then. Cool bananas. That's it. Nothing. But no, what I was saying is, that's what I was saying. We started this at the beginning of the first lockdown.
We did. It was about the middle of May.
And we were like, it was hot. The Jubilee happened. Not the Jubilee. You know, we were outside having a street party.
That was BE Day.
BE Day, that's it. So yeah, and now look at us. We're just coming out of the fourth one.
Lockdown.
Yeah.
I know. Let's hope there won't be any more.
I don't think there will be, will there?
Well, it depends on how effective the vaccine is, and we won't know that till the end of April. Really, how effective, because everybody thinks that the lowering of the numbers is a result of the vaccine, and that's not true. The lowering of the numbers is because of lockdown.
But do you know what's going to be fascinating is that when somebody's listening to this in a year's time,
or 10 years' time,
and we're wondering about whether or not the fourth lockdown will be, and they'll be like, oh, they don't know that there's another 6 to come.
Oh, they don't. They have no idea, do they?
They have no idea.
They've got no
No
idea.
idea how worse it's going to get. Or it'll be a case of this was the best thing that they ever did. They don't know.
Because it's really shit now.
Yeah.
Or it's like, oh, it's so amazing now. It doesn't matter.
So yeah, we shall see.
Let's close, babes.
I'll see you guys next week with this man. Don't forget, don't judge a book. Shit. It was going so well.
It was going so well.
Don't forget, don't judge a book by its cover.
And stay frosty.
Bye.
Bye.